Islam, Islam, Islam. Welcome to the Moorish channel. I'm your host, Brother Brendan Joyner Ill. I'd like to thank you for tuning into the Moorish channel during this late evening here, Eastern Standard Time at 11 p.m. I want to first rise and give praises to Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I want to give honors to our beloved Prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, born in the state of North Carolina, January the 8th, 1886, the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I want to give honors to all of those who are keeping the doors of the Moorish Science Temple of America open, past and present leaders, those that we know and those that we don't know. I want to give honors to everyone who's tuning in. I want to give honors to those who have shown their support, have shown their love and support. Also, those who have shown their critiques as well. During the More Sense channel, More Sense show. Now I would like to just bring our attention to tonight's segment. Tonight's segment is going to be on the creation and fall of man, chapter 1 in the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. But before I do so, I want to open this specific segment off with the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Praise Allah. Once again, welcome to the Moorish Science channel. I'm your host, Brother Brendan Joyner Ill, Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 13, located in Baltimore, Maryland, located at 1055 North Milton Avenue. That's East Baltimore. I want to give honors to our Supreme Grand Sheik and Supreme Grand Sheik and Supreme Grand Sheiks of our administration. That's Supreme Grand Sheik C. Pray the Ill, as well as Supreme Grand Sheik B. Pray the Ill. Our National Grand Sheik is T. Jones Bay. And I also want to give honors to all our officials at 1055 North Milton Avenue. I want to give honors to each and every one of you, all Moorish Americans, all Ills and Bays, all sympathizers, well-wishers, etc., and each and every individual who may tune into this program. I want to apologize ahead of time if you see me sipping on my tea during the portion of this segment. I'm still getting over this specific ailment that I've been dealing with. So, I just want to put apologies out there. But ultimately, I don't want to waste anyone's time. I want to just focus on tonight's segment, which is the creation and fall of man, which is also known as the infinite experience. And the reason why I added that portion onto this segment, the infinite experience, is because I wanted to just kind of impart on the hearts and minds of each and every one of you on this concept, or this thing we call life. And I'm just going to speak from my own perspective. When I look at life and what life truly is, I've been given such a greater or deeper appreciation of what life truly is since coming into the knowledge of the fact that there are multiple aspects of me, of who I truly am. And what I mean by that is I'm not just this physical form, and neither are you. There's so much more to us within, and the true essence of who we truly are. And with that being said, I wanted to share a little bit with you in regards to the essence of what makes us who we are, what comprises who we are as human beings, what comprises who we are as humanity, ultimately. But with that being said, I do want to share with you a brief portion from our Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and that is chapter 1. So give me 1 second, please. And I just want to make sure that everyone can see the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America so that you're familiar with it. And this is a copy of the Koran right here. So I'll be coming from chapter 1, the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, affectionately known to many as the Circle 7. It is divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guides of his father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his father God Allah. And the beauty of having the Holy Koran in your possession is the fact that the Holy Koran of the Moorish Science Temple of America is an instructional manual. I know in the last two previous segments, myself and the co-host Sheikh Melvin Valansbey, we've been hitting heavily on nationality. This evening, I wanted to just kind of veer off just a little bit and kind of deal with the divine aspect of who we are, because I think that in life we do need balance. Often, especially in society today, and maybe even the last 4 years, there's been a bombardment of, I guess you can call it like a social media overload or just an information overload as it relates to what is defined as normal, or what is defined as reality, or what's defined as acceptable. But what I would like to do tonight, I would like us to look at the true aspect of who uh, each and every individual is. You know, so with that being said, I'm going to be doing a little bit of reading. But before I do reading, I want to go to a diagram that I have, because this diagram will lay out the ultimate goal of uh, this brief segment, which is on the creation and fall of man, the infinite experience. And I want to give honest to Sheikh C. Prathael, because one thing that I've learned from him under his tutelage and direction is that, diagrams and representation is everything. And you want to often make sure that those who are, under the sound of your voice, they're able to see in real time what it is that you're trying to convey, or what message you're trying to convey. So we're going to be dealing with the essence of the body, the soul, and the spirit, but not in that aspect. And I'll bring this back up momentarily. But one thing I want us to focus on are the words healing, the words health, the words honesty. And I also want us to focus on the internal and the external part of where healing, health, and honesty actually takes place. I also want us to focus, my apologies, for us to focus on the title of this chapter, which is the creation and fall of man. Because what you'll find in the chapter itself, you'll find your insertion, your dissension, and then your ascension again. And the prophet lets us know, Prophet Noble Drew, he lets us know in Act 2 of our divine constitution and bylaws that Friday is a day in which man was formed in flesh. And it was on a Friday when he departed out of flesh and ascended until his Father God Allah. And therefore, Friday is a holy day. It's a sacred day for all Muslims. And a Muslim is one who submits his or her will to the will of Allah. But the interesting part about that is, as we read this chapter, we're going to find a little bit more about that will. So let's get into the chapter. And if you have any questions or comments at all, please feel free to put them in the chat. Please feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat. If you don't feel comfortable putting your questions and comments in the chat, by all means, you can email us at moorishsensemedia@gmail.com. And I just ask that you allow us at least 24 hours to get back to you. But we definitely will get back to you. So here we go, chapter 1. I'm just going to pull it up for those who want to follow along. And I'm sorry, my apologies if you can't see it, but I'm just going to do a little bit of reading, and I'll do a little bit of breakdowns as well. Okay, so I'll be reading from my Koran, which is right in front of me. Okay, so divine instructions from the Holy Prophet, chapter 1, the creation and fall of man. And the one thing I want to point out, if you haven't noticed, chapter 1 doesn't have any verses. And it's a specific reason why chapter 1 doesn't have any verses. And I'll get into that momentarily. It reads, time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time will come when it will end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. I want to stop there, because what we're focusing on right here, we're dealing with a statement, and the statement is in quotes. And it's letting us know that time, we're not we're not confined by time. And I'm speaking specifically about the essence and core of who we truly are. In some places, you may hear that to be absent from the body is to be present with, and some people say the Lord, but for the sake of this, I'm going to say Allah. And that's true to some degree, but you're still present with the great universal creator Allah, even in the form. And I'll explain further. It says, if life of man at any time began, a time will come when it will end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject unto change. All finite things will cease to be because there was a time when they were not. So now we have to get into the essence of what does this actually mean? What is a finite thing? What are things that are finite? Well, this computer that I'm speaking to you on, this program, this platform is finite. Because at one point in time, it took someone to create it. It took someone to construct it. It took someone to create and construct this microphone. This microphone right here is going to cease to be eventually. This computer is going to cease to be eventually because it has a specific purpose. The purpose is to disseminate information, is to retain information, and then after a while, it's going to burn out. It's going to burn out. And though the parts in it may be reusable or recycled, they can be recycled. Ultimately, this is a finite piece of equipment. It was created for the specific and sole purpose to do a specific mission and job, but it doesn't have a heartbeat or anything of that nature. It's not a living being, okay? And I hope that makes sense. It says the bodies and souls of men are finite things. They will change, yea, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. So, when you look at this, the body is not man, woman, or child. The body is the house of man, woman, and child. And we live in these bodies for about 70 plus years when taken care of properly. If we take care of our bodies properly, if we eat properly, if we get enough rest, and I know I'm one to speak right now at 11 o'clock at night uh, during this segment, but if we take care of our bodies properly, if we eat properly, if we rest properly, if we exercise properly, if we take care of ourselves uh, mentally, good mental hygiene, good physical hygiene, all different types of different aspects, different variations of just being hygienic, cleanliness, practicing order and decency. We have the ability to live longer. But ultimately, the body itself, this physical form right here, just like the computer I just mentioned, it has a purpose. It has a specific purpose. It has a specific function. And then when it's finished its function, it's gonna drop. I'm gonna drop this form. And with me personally, it was something that I didn't necessarily come into the understanding of, and I'm still trying to make sense of it, at the age of 34. But every day I'm becoming a little bit more aware and more in tune with it. It's not the fact that I'm um, wishing any ill harm to myself, but I'm starting to understand and become a little bit more familiar with the fact that everything has a purpose, even this physical body, and even the unseen. For example, like the soul. But I want to continue. And the Prophet Noble Drew states, but man himself is not the body nor the soul. He is a spirit and a part of Allah. Spirit. And when we make mention of spirit in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we're not making mention of anything spooky or ghoulish. We're not making mention of anything that's outside, but we're making mention of the fact of breath. Somewhere you may have read that uh, and I'm gonna just use a paraphrase, that God breathed breath into man's nostrils and man became a living soul. That's one aspect of it. But when you really look at the word spirit in itself, and you look at what it means, ultimately, the essence of the word, it means breath, or the breath of Allah, the breath of God, Allah. It means the breath of life, or it means life itself. So when you're dealing with spirit ultimately means breath. Even when you deal with quote unquote so-called indigenous cultures, you'll find that And many times, individuals made or gave reverence to the Great Spirit. So spirit ultimately means breath, and we are a part of that breath of the great universal creator. Okay? It says, creative fate gave to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul, gave him a body of flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to soul a body of flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest? These are questions. These are questions. Because spirit man is coming from the highest plane. It's coming from spirit man is coming from Allah. Allah is giving a piece of himself for spirit man. But creative fate is given to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul, that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. And then we want to know why. So here's the why, excuse me. And this is a proclamation. Hear now, you cherubim, you seraphim, you angels, and you men. Hear now, O protoplasm, and earth, and plant, and beast. Hear now, you creeping things of earth, you fish that swim, ye birds that fly. And I want to stop there. Because when you're looking at the creeping things of the earth, the fish that swim, the birds that fly, the protoplasm, the earth, the plant, and the beast, you're dealing with thoughts. Everything that's happening right here in chapter 1 is focusing on the thoughts or the emanation of things that have not come into fruition, that have not taken form yet. But this is the infinite experience that we're going through. Because as we go through life and we start off, going through the processes of life, these are the things that are happening. And it continues to say, hear now, you winds that blow, you thunders, you lightnings of the sky. Hear now, you spirits of the fire, of water, earth, and air. Hear now, O everything that is, was, or evermore will be. For wisdom speaks out of the highest plane of spirit life. Man is a thought of Allah. All thoughts of Allah are infinite. They are not measured up by time, for the things that are concerned with time begin and end. So man is a thought of Allah. And when we say man, we're not speaking reference to gender man, because we know that man, we're talking about spirit man or spirit woman. So when you're dealing with man, woman, and child, the human body, the human body itself cannot be killed or it cannot be destroyed because it's composed of 17 chemicals. And the fact of the matter is, those chemicals that we're talking about, those 17 chemicals, the chemicals get their fruit and vegetation from Mother Earth. So everything that comprises or makes up this body and is being put to make this body or manifest this body is a result of the things that we're teaching right here. Specifically, when you're dealing with man being a thought of Allah, the fact that the thoughts of Allah are infinite, they're not measured up by time, they're not concerned by time, they have no beginning or end. And the fact that the thoughts of Allah are the everlasting past into the never ending days to come. And so is spirit man. So there's no beginning or end to us. No beginning or end at all. So much to the point that when you look at life itself, and going back to this diagram, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali gives us in later chapters, he states that in the soul of man, he says, what health is to the body, even that is honesty to the soul. And we're comprised of three different portions or aspects. So if you look at the diagram, and I'm not a really good illustrator when it comes to human forms, but if you look at the diagram of the bodily form, the outer band represents your physical body. The second band represents the soul. And the inside, the core, represents who you truly are. But the Prophet lets us know, the lessons and the teachings, they let us know that the blessings of thy external part is health, vigor, and proportion, and the greatest of these is health. So health to your outer frame is the greatest, but the greatest part for the soul is honesty, because honesty will lead the soul aright. The spirit is perfect in itself, but healing takes place in the soul. And what I mean by that is, when you look at the soul itself is a seeker after truth. The soul itself, it seeks for truth. It seeks for experience. It seeks to know. It seeks to know the truth all in all. But unfortunately, through this thing that we call life, we go through different ups and downs. We go through upheavals and things of that nature. And at times, because our souls may be seeking after truth, it may come in the form of hurt. It may come in the form of disappointment. It may come in the form of pain. It may come into all these different forms. And as a result of that, it has some damage done to it. So the question becomes, well, how do you heal? How do you heal? How does the soul heal? And chapter 1 explains that. So let's continue. It says, but man, like every other thought of Allah, was but a seed that held within itself the potencies of Allah, just as the seed of any plant of earth holds deep within itself the attributes of every part of that special plant. And, again, demonstrating off of diagrams. One of my favorite fruits is in front of me. It's an apple. And I love apples. And I have a butter knife in front of me, so I'm not going to do any damage. I'm just going to cut it, chopping it, right? Slice it open. When you open this apple, what you're going to find in this apple, you're going to find apple seeds. Got a couple of them, but I got 2 in my hand right here. 2 apple seeds. Okay? And when you look at these seeds, right? The apple seed itself, does not create other apple trees. It only multiplies bodies of apples. So when you look at it, ultimately, Allah created all the apple trees in creation. He did it in 7 days according to science. But the apple itself, the seed itself, has the potencies of the tree. The seed itself has the potencies. And what comprised of what made up this apple was every chemical that Mother Earth had in it. Mother Earth itself has 92 chemicals, and these chemicals contain protons, neutrons, and electrons. So when the apple seed is planted in the earth, when it's planted in the soil, it immediately begins to utilize these chemicals to build its body. And by building the body is building is the apple tree, much like you and I. We have to be firmly planted. We have to be deeply planted in the soil. The soil of what? The soil of life. The soil of knowing and understanding who we truly are. The soil of knowing and understanding that we're not this physical form, nor are we a soul, nor are we a lost soul. We're not none of those things. We're not a lost soul. We're not a physical form, but in fact, we're a spirit and we are part of Allah. And when we come to know and understand this, we become deeply planted and firm. But just like the apple tree, just like the roots of the apple tree, once we become established and deeply firm and penetrate deep into the earth or deep into that soil, we're allowed to grow a specific pace. And what you'll find is by growing a pace, you go through what's called a transformation or metamorphosis. And from this, so many different things, so many different benefits come from this. And I'll give you an example. I've been in the Moorish Temple of America for approximately 9 years. And initially, when I came into the temple, a lot of things didn't make sense to me. Specific lessons the elders taught, specific sayings the elders would say, even certain lessons, even this chapter itself, it didn't quite make sense to me. It wasn't until recently where I started kind of getting a little bit of a better understanding of it and a deeper appreciation for this chapter that it started making sense to me. And as a result of that, it started to crystallize, much like when a tree has sap. When a tree has sap, the tree produces sap. The sap is also considered at times to be the blood of the tree, but it returns as sap, just like in the chapter of gratitude, in later chapters in the Holy Koran. So all the analogies that we find in our Quran are pertaining to nature, because we ourselves, we are a part of nature. We come from Allah ultimately. Um, so let me continue. So it says, so spirit man is a seed of Allah, held deep within himself, the attributes of every part of Allah. Now seeds are perfect, yea, as perfect as the source from which they come, but they're not unfolded into life made manifest. So in this specific plane, the life made manifest, the manifestation of physical forms, we go through a process, or we go through the process called life, but our complete unfoldment does not happen on this specific plane. And the reason being is because, excuse me, the reason being is because this is the lowest form. This is the lowest form of dissension. The plane of things made manifest is the lowest form of dissension. When we descended from the highest plane, which is spirit life, we went from spirit life to the plane of souls, to the plane of things made manifest. And we're making a homeward journey to get back to where we came from. So this is not the end all be all. And the prophet says this: the child is as perfect as the mother. So man, the seed must be deeply planted in the soil that he might grow, unfold, as the bud unfolds to show the flower. And that's the same analogy that we just made in regards to the apple, the fruit, the vegetation, etc. And this is why it's increasingly important that, we consume the apple, the fruit, the vegetation, etc., because that has life energy within it. It has protons, the neutrons, the electrons, the vitamins, the minerals, the things that are breathing, that are life giving, and continue to sustain us, as opposed to things that are dead. They really can't sustain us at all, and really don't serve our bodies, our physical bodies, or even our spirit any good at all. Okay. It says the human seed came forth from the heart of Allah, was full ordained to be the Lord of the plane of soul and the plane of things made manifest. So the human seed, you and I, the human seed that came forth from Allah, we were full ordained, and we are full ordained to be the Lord of the plane of soul and the plane of things made manifest. The Lord meaning the ruler, the governor of all we see here. But something happened along the way that threw us off course. Let's continue. So Allah, the husbandman of everything, threw forth this human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul, and he became the Lord of all the kingdom of the soul. Hark, now let every creature hear. The plane of soul is the ether of the spirit plane vibrating not so fast, and in the slower rhythm of this plane, the essence of life manifests. Now, excuse me, a good analogy would be spokes on a wheel, a bicycle wheel. If you ever look at the spokes on a bicycle wheel, if you pedal a bicycle very fast, you'll look at the spokes and they're moving at a rate where you can't even see them. But if you slow the wheel down, it starts to get slower and slower and slower. And this is a good analogy when you're dealing with the spirit plane, the planet soul, and the plane of things made manifest. The plane that we're existing right now is the slowest vibrating pace. It's the slowest vibrating uh, plane. The plane of soul is vibrating faster. And because it's vibrating a little bit faster, you can't see it. I can't see it. And then the spirit plane likewise is vibrating on a normal pace. It says the perfumes, the odors, and the true sensations of the all of love made manifest. And these souls' attributes became a body beautiful. A multitude of lessons man must learn on the plane of soul, and he tarries for many ages until his lessons are all learned. So the lessons that we learn these lessons, or we learn our lessons on the plane of soul. For many ages we tarry, and tarry just means work. You're working on a task. Excuse me. And the task you're learning is the task of conquering self. Upon the boundary of soul, the ether began to vibrate slower still, and then the essence took on a final guard. The perfumes, the odors, and the true sensations, and the love and the all of love were clothed in flesh. And that's this physical form that you see. So we don't get caught up on the form, though we know the form has a purpose, we know the soul has a purpose, and we know the spirit, who we truly are, has a purpose. And man was clothed in flesh. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life. And so a carnal was full manifest. And let me go back. And let me go to the second one so you can follow along. My apologies. I'll give you the second page. There we go. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal was full manifest. And nature sprang forth from fleshly things. So then we look at the nature. The nature of what? Hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. The nature of gossiping, the nature of ego, the nature of vanity. There's so many different natures that spring forth from this carnal nature, and it becomes a foe. And a foe just means an adversary. It doesn't necessarily mean it is evil or is wicked. It's just something that we have to be able to subdue and not allow it to rule over us, not allow our passions and our desires to rule over us, but instead to draw a circle around our passions and desires and keep them within the bounds of moderation. These are the lessons that we learn here in the Moorish Science Temple of America, but this is also these are also the lessons that we learn to make them applicable to our lives as we go through this thing called life. And the prophet says this, the prophet Noble Drowley says this: without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. And thought must be exercised by, and thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. So if man is a thought of Allah, and the thoughts of Allah have no beginning and end, and I'm paraphrasing, and the prophet later on lets us know that thought must be exercised, but must be developed by the exercise of strength. The strength comes from what? Thinking, subduing thoughts that mean us no good, that don't mean us uh, any good whatsoever, thoughts that do us harm. And when we have thoughts that do others harm, we're actually doing harm to ourselves as well. So the prophet is letting us know that, this carnal nature, though it is a foe and it's something that we must fight, the best way that we fight it is by, number one, controlling our thoughts. And that's one of the hardest things to do. I go through life, I'm gonna say life, but I go through maybe possibly a day, and you start your day off well. You start the day off, on point. I'm going to have a positive day. I'm not going to try to think anything negative. And the next thing here comes a thought. Or somebody might cut you off at, while you're driving your children to school. I know it happens to me. And my children, they have a kick out of it because I get frustrated with people. And that's just part of the human condition. But then I have to go back in my mind and say, oh, Allah, please forgive me. And, likewise, please, allow this person, this individual to make it safely to and from their destination, and likewise. But thoughts, we have all different types of thoughts, but we can develop those thoughts by the exercise of strength. So the prophet says, and so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. So we have the ability to be the strength of Allah made manifest in this physical form. This physical form is not a total adversary, but it only becomes an adversary when we when we allow our negative thoughts, or we allow our low thoughts, or we allow our thoughts to get the best of us, those thoughts that don't mean us any good, or thoughts that don't mean those who we come in contact with, those that we know, those that we don't know any good. So, we just have to guard our thoughts at all times. And then also, sometimes we have to think about thinking. And the prophet says, let every living thing stand still and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplasm, of mineral, of plant and beast. But he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. Now, that word birthrights is very important because a lot of, and I'm just speaking honest. A lot of people think that when the prophet Noble Ali makes reference to birthrights in this aspect, they think that he's making reference to something physical, which is not true in this aspect. In this aspect, the prophet is making reference to our birthrights from the jump from where we come from, which is the spirit plane. On the cover of our Holy Koran in the Moorish Science Temple of America, the prophet states that he's being guided by Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from his sinful and fallen stage of humanity back to the highest plane of life with his Father God Allah. The highest plane that we come from is spirit life. And the prophet also lets us know in chapter 1, and I'm just going to read it again. The prophet says that wisdom speaks from the highest plane of spirit life. So we come from spirit, we come from the spiritual plane. We're divine by nature. But because of the dissension or the fall, we are making a homeward journey. And as a result of gratifying our lower self, when the prophet teaches us to our lower self, ultimately, the prophet says, what does the lower self breed? And the answer in our 101 questions is hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms. These are some of the aspects. These are some of the natures that breed a lower nature, that breed a lower vibration. And when we give credence to our lower self, we're actually doing a disservice to ourselves because ultimately what we're doing, we're giving up our birthrights. And by birthrights, again, we're talking spiritual. We're not talking anything in regards to a physical birthright at this moment. Okay? But the prophet also gives us hope. He states, but man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do so in a conflict that cannot be told in words. So even me sitting here right now, 38 minutes and 12 seconds into this this segment, is to give people hope and inspiration, but ultimately it still can't be told in words. It only can be told in actually doing the work, working on it, working on yourself, working to, number one, develop the strength of taming your thoughts by building up your character, by building up our character, by looking within ourselves to know our strength and our worthiness. Knowing and understanding that, yes, we do have a lower self, but likewise, we have a higher self. And we, in fact, are our higher self. We also, not only are we our higher selves, but within our higher self, we have the mothers of the mother of virtues, the harmonies of life that breeds justice, mercy, love, and right. But we have a choice. Which one are we going to give credence to? Are we going to give credence to our higher self or our lower self? It's all contingent based on the choices that we make. And this right here is the hit, as one of our elders, Grand Sheikah Yvonne Green Neal, may Allah be pleased, she used to say, this is the hit. The hit is this. It's based on the choices that we make. It's based on the thoughts that we allow to take precedence in our mind. We have a choice in that road, whether or not we're going to give credence to the higher self or the lower self. So unlike, and I'm not speaking radical, but unlike some places that teach people that they were born in sin and there's no hope, we, on the other hand, here in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we don't teach that. Hope is forever your beacon light. You have the ability to grow, to flourish. You have the ability to reform yourself. You have the ability to get yourself out of whatever condition you find yourself in, but it's solely contingent on your thought processes, and it's solely contingent upon the work that you do on yourself and the work that you do for the benefit of others. These are the things these are the lessons, not the things, but these are the lessons that we not only teach, but we instill within ourselves, within our families, within our communities, and within our members, within the members within our organization. And the prophet says this: but man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do so in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yea, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold, but let him know that the cherubim and the seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and spirit of the mighty Allah who rule the solar stars are his protectors and his guide and will lead to victory. And they will lead to victory. So you're going to suffer trials. You're going to suffer temptations. We're going to suffer. I'm not going to say you. We're going to, because I'm not exempt from this. You're not exempt from this. And guess what? We're all in this together because we all have a higher self and a lower self. We're going to suffer trials. We're going to suffer temptations. And like I said earlier, we're going to have high points in our day, in our week, in our year, in our moments in life. We're going to have low points. You're going to have temptations. You're going to have times where you're going to want to uh, you know, cut up and things of that nature. But again, it's contingent upon your strength. And then you also have a bit of a surety by knowing that the cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and the spirit of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are your protectors and your guides. Nothing can touch you at all. Whatever happens on this physical plane, and whatever happened to this physical form, my physical form, I'm okay with it. Because at the end of the day, I know that I'm being protected. And I know that, number one, I'm not this body. I'm not, I have a soul, but I'm not that. I'm greater than that. And as a result of that, I have the ability to ascend. I have the ability to ascend right now. I ascend every Friday. I ascend every Sunday, and I ascend every Monday through Friday, every Sunday through Sunday, every Friday through Friday. I have the ability to do so, and so do you. But it's all contingent upon the way of thinking, my thought processes. You know, I have the ability to have a great day, or I have the ability to make my day not so great. No one outside of me, nothing outside of me has control over what I do. Nothing at all. It's all contingent upon me. And when you realize those things, you start taking this responsibility and accountability for your actions, and you don't place blame on others. And that's one thing I really appreciate about the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the lessons that we learn here in the Moorish Science Temple of America, my apologies, is that we take accountability for our actions, and we take the responsibility is placed back on the individual as opposed to heaping the burden up on someone else. And let's continue. And again, if you have any questions at all or any comments, you can put them in the chat. If you have any questions or comments on YouTube or on Facebook, please, by all means, put them in the chat as well. They're greatly appreciated and they're highly valued. Thank you very much. All right, let's continue. So the prophet also states this in the same chapter. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, and perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. Suffering sounds like such a cruel word. It sounds like such a painful word. It sounds like a word that it sounds like it's something that's agonizing, but suffering, ultimately, when you look at what suffering just means that you're going to go through ordeals. And we go through ordeals every day. We've been going through ordeals since we were children. Believe it or not, when you learn how to crawl, from crawling to standing up on your own, to walking, to running, to falling down, to getting back up, to falling down, those are ordeals. And then you go through ordeals, as adults, young adults, older adults, elderly. It's life is just a cycle of events reoccurring. And these are the things. So, you know, the things you suffer, the things that we suffer here on this plane of flesh, and even on the next plane, let your heart not be troubled. They're for the benefit of buffeting us and to making us stronger, to fortifying us, to make sure that, we're able to, again, get back to where we need to go. And again, this isn't a spooky reality. This is just the reality of life. And I'll elaborate on that in a little bit more. And the prophet says this, excuse me, when man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served his purpose well, and it will fall and be no more. Carnal things. Carnal things. The prophet says when man has conquered carnal things first begin with thoughts. For example, I may have the thought that, you know, I see an item that I will like, and there's nothing wrong with liking nice things, right? But if I have, or I want an excess or an abundance of a thing, and I take it and I use it to the detriment of someone else, that's a carnal thing. If it's not being used to the benefit of all, or the benefit of, myself, or if I'm not using it in moderation, that's a carnal thing. But once I conquer the thought and say, well, hey, you know what? I don't need a great excess amount. I just need a little bit, or I just need what is sufficient for me and my family, then I've conquered it. But the prophet says when man has conquered carnal things, his God of the flesh will have served his purpose well, and it will fall and be no more. So once we conquer it, once we master it, once we're able to address it, acknowledge it, address it, and say, you know what? That right there is wrong. I know for a fact I've learned my lesson from past experience, from previous experience, because reincarnation is a fact. Um, and we do have what some people call deja vus, some people call epiphanies, etc. These things are real. These are realities. You may have felt like you were in a specific space before, and you learned your lesson, or you see, well, say, hey, this is familiar. Okay, I don't want to go that route anymore, right? Or I don't want to test that water, so to speak, anymore. You've learned your lesson, but once you've learned all your lessons, this form you won't need this form anymore. The prophet says, then he will stand untrammeled on the plane of soul. So now we're dealing with the plane of soul, where he must full complete his victories, not partially, but fully. A number of foes will stand before man upon the plane of soul. These he must overcome, yea, overcome them everyone. Thus, hope will ever be his beacon light. There is no failure for the human soul, for Allah is leading on and victory is sure. So, here in the Moorish Science Temple of America, we don't teach, well, I'm not even going to say we don't teach. According to the lessons and the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali in the Moorish Science Temple of America, and what we know and understand, heaven and hell are not a place of meets and bounds, but heaven and hell is a state of mind. It is a condition that we make, and is contingent upon, again, the thoughts that we produce and the things that we manifest. We have the ability to manifest heaven, and we have the ability to manifest hell, but it rests solely on our thought processes. Plain and simple. And I can't place blame on the next person for my condition. The condition that I make today is the future. My future is based on the conditions that I make that I make or I exhibit today. I can't place blame on my wife. I can't place blame on my children. I can't place blame on the brother over here or the sister over there. I can only rest solely and place full responsibility on me. And that's the beauty of knowing and understanding this. Because when you understand this, you also realize that there's no failure for the human soul. The only thing that is evident for the human soul by going through uh, this series of learning and conquering these different foes is the fact that it's moving towards perfection. It's moving toward perfection. It's getting that experience through perfection. The prophet says, "For Allah's leading on and victory is sure." Man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah. And while Allah lives, man cannot die. When man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have full open out, will have unfolded in the holy breath. The garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will need it nevermore, and it will pass and be no more. and it will then attain unto the blessedness of perfectness and at one with Allah, Islam. And this is the purpose. So when you look at this, the Prophet Noble Ali is letting us know that no, we can't die. There's no death. In the true sense, there's no death. What you think is death, when you see this form drop, or when you see people go through the ordeal called death, that is not that's just a part of life. It's a life experience because we're one with Allah. Allah lives forever. And because we are a seed of Allah and we have within us the potencies of Allah, we have it within us every a special attribute, just like a plant, just like the apple that I cut, the seed right here, this apple seed has the potencies of his mother apple. The apple itself has the potencies of that tree that it was picked from. It's the same way we have the same potencies of the great universal creator Allah within us. And as a result of that, we can't die, but we have to conquer our foes. And when we conquer every foe on the plane of soul, not on the plane of things made manifest, the seed will have full open out. It's going to bloom. And as a result, it's going to unfold into the holy breath. And we made mention earlier about that word breath. The word breath, ultimately, it is synonymous with the word spirit. It's one other point that I would like to expound on before. Give me 1 second, please. There's one other point I would like to expound on before concluding, and that's on the plane of soul. Excuse me. Give me 1 second. My apologies. It's the soul of man. I'm going to just close this up. I'm going to pull this up. And this is a point that I pray that a lot is being raised. It raises the consciousness of those who are listening, or just the understanding. I really don't like using the word consciousness, but just the understanding. Since we have kind of talked a little bit about the soul, and this is from chapter, this is from chapter 38, and this is holy instructions from the prophet, the soul of man. It states this. It says, the blessing, O man, of thy external part is health, vigor, and proportion. The greatest of these is health. What health is to the body, even that is honesty to the soul. That thou hast a soul is of all knowledge the most certain of all truths, the most plain unto thee. Be meek, be grateful for it. Seek not to know it perfectly. It is inscrutable. And this is in reference to the soul. Thinking, understanding, reasoning, willing, call these not the soul. These are its actions, but they are not its essence. Raise it not too high, that thou be despised. Be not thou like unto those who fall by climbing, neither debase it to the sense of brutes, neither be like to the horse and the mule, and to whom there is no understanding. Now, the reason why I wanted to read that part is because the soul is a beautiful component of us. It is, in fact, part of us. But ultimately, when you're dealing with the soul of man, we have to be very, very mindful. And it's not to say anything spooky, but we have to be very mindful that the soul is a seeker after truth. And the soul has many different tendencies. The soul has a tendency to be rash. The soul has the tendency to be outrageous, to ego trip. The soul has the tendency to be a seeker after truth. The soul also has the tendencies to attempt to discover the truth by experience, and also the soul has a tendency to go, the way of a general opinion. The Prophet Noble Ali lets us know that the general opinion is no proof of the truth, and not part of the reason, but the main reason is because the generality of men are ignorant. But ultimately, the prophet, Noble Drew Ali, by the way of the Holy Koran, the Moorish Science Temple of America, lets us know that the perception of thyself, and we just talked about the thyself, excuse me, and the thyself is spirit, who you truly are. So the perception of who you truly are, the fact that you're not this form, but you are, in fact, your spirit is animating this form. And the knowledge of him who created thee, Allah, who created you, who created me, who created everything, every living thing, right? In the sense of worship that we owe unto Allah. And I say Allah because Allah is a personal and proper name, the God of my understanding. Excuse me, but I also know that the great God of the universe has many names, and our Holy Quran teaches that as well. So you know, whatever name you choose to call the great God of the universe, um, again, perception of thyself, the knowledge of Him who created you, and the sense of worship that you owe us unto Him. Um, the prophet lets us know, or he asks us a question. He says, "Are not these plain before thy face? And behold, what is there more than man needeth to know?" So when you get down to it, ultimately, we come into the temple, the Moorish Science Temple of America, and the first lesson, it's two lessons that we learn. The first is to know thyself and thy Father God Allah. And the other lesson that we learn is to study yourselves again and again. Study your higher self, study your lower self. And when you think when you think you've mastered, or when you think that you understand your higher self and lower self, specifically that lower self, but the higher self too, study it again, because as I've been taught in the temple, uh, you're growing, you develop in the temple. But right there, while you're growing and developing, your higher self is flourishing, your lower self is right there next to you. And if you aren't careful, it'll snuff you out. It'll stuff you out through vanity, through pride, through ego, through boastfulness, and all these things. So, we're taught to be humble in the sense of, showing humility, but also, showing meekness, because meekness isn't weakness. It just means that, I know and understand where the strength and the strength and the force, excuse me, exists, and where it comes from, where it derives from, not exists, but where it derives from. And that's Almighty God Allah. And with that, I give Allah all pure and perfect praise. And I want to give honor to the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I give honor to the Prophet because he's the one who took my mind. I can't speak for anyone else, but took my mind out of the sky and put it in reality, and allowed me to understand that a part of Allah was within me. And because of that, I'm grateful, and I'm thankful, and I give, um, I just thank Allah, the author, the creator, the governor of the worlds, almighty, eternal, incomprehensible. And I'm just really grateful. I'm filled up. So with that being said, I'm almost 1 hour in, and I didn't even think I was going to demonstrate this. Well, not demonstrate, but go over this portion for this point in time. But I just want to thank everyone who tuned in. Please, by all means, if you have any questions, any comments, any feedback whatsoever, it's greatly appreciated. Again, I hope everyone has a safe evening. I pray that you all be you you are you stay safe, stay blessed. In these times, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow for our part 3 segment with myself and Sheikh Melvin Valance Bay on what is your nationality. With that, I'm going to say Islam and peace. I'm going to end off with the Moorish American prayer. Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Islam.